You just have to find somebody really cool to stalk, like I did when I was a kid.
Or just learn how.
Or learn. That's actually a better way. Learn how to do it, and then it pays off. But we were sort of talking earlier about people from Pittsburgh. When we did Land of the Dead, we shot in Toronto, and I remember George at one point, we were at conventions, and there were a lot of people that were literally giving me their email addresses and saying, we want to come up to Toronto, we want to be zombies. Unfortunately, we were unable to get work permits for people to cross the border. So most of the people that were zombies in Land of the Dead were all Canadian actors and extras. So they weren't really even into zombie movies. They were just like the union said, you go to this spot this night, and they would walk into the makeup trailer and we would start gluing stuff to them. And it made me feel kind of bad because the people that make the best zombies are the people that saw Night of the Living Dead or saw Dawn of the Dead and have practiced their zombie walk. Yeah. And if any of you in this room say you haven't practiced the zombie walk or what's under, you are all fucking liars. Because even Quentin Tarantino, we came to the Land of the Dead premiere in Pittsburgh. And we took Quentin to the cemetery where they shot the original Night of the Living Dead. And Quentin said, I've been waiting all of my life to do this. And he walked through the cemetery up to the exact tombstone where Johnny gets his head bashed in. And he had it to a T. And then Simon Pegg, who from Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, he did the same walk. So these guys have, everybody that's ever wanted to be a zombie has practiced their zombie walk from the first time they saw one.
Well, especially if you're born in Pittsburgh. Like, if you're born in Pittsburgh, one of the things you want to be when you grow up is a zombie in a Romero movie, So those people were coming up to us and saying, we want to be in the Land of the Dead, we want to be a zombie. We were saying, sorry, you have to be Canadian. So.
But the funny thing too is that, and we were a little disappointed because there were some fans from Toronto that lived there that I got to get to the set, and we did really great makeup on them and contact lenses. They were the best zombies. But the funniest thing was that you'd see different zombies, and you'd see one guy like this. We would name. What? Oh.
I hate this tripod.
Is that me?
Maybe you're too close to that.
We would see different people in a crowd, and we would nickname them. So we'd go, okay, here's this guy. That was the ice skating zombie. And then, and then we'd see this guy. This is the good one. That was the get the hell out of my yard zombie. So there was this video from Land of the Dead where we would nickname every zombie walk of our own. So
we did the same thing in Night of the Living Dead. It was the James Mason zombie or the Jimmy Stewart zombie or the Catherine Hepburn zombie because it was just something that they would do, in their little zombie shtick. And it was easy. Send me the James Mason zombie, put that guy up front because we had a personality and we knew him. At least the mics are off again, so.
she's playing with
Anybody have any questions? Are we getting more zombies coming in? More people who were zombies in the movies? Tom, we're slow.
Give that guy $5. Yeah, because if they come running in, then we know that they're not Romero zombies.
What do you want to know? What do you want to know? Nothing? Okay, well, thanks for coming. Yes. Oh, please raise your hand. What? What did you say?
How did you meet George?
George came to my high school when I was a sophomore. He was casting a movie called Wine of the Fawn, W-H-I. It never got made. But I did a screen test for him. I was the only guy in the high school that he picked. And I did a screen test. The movie was never made. So now I know him. Years later, I went and I showed him my portfolio with work on Night of the Living Dead. But I had enlisted in the Army at the time to stay out of Vietnam. And they called me in, and I went to Vietnam. So I was in Vietnam when we shot Night of the Living Dead, but we had a history going because of that high school thing that we did. You had a question?
What about your experiences on the remake of Night? Had people really film?
No, my experiences on the remake of Night, that was the worst nightmare of mine. I still have nightmares that I'm on the set directing that movie. When I was there, I couldn't wait for the birds to start chirping at 6 o'clock in the morning so we could even go home. It was just a nightmare. George wasn't there. If George were there, it would have been a lot of fun. But there was 2 producers there, and we just made it impossible. There's about 30% of what I wanted to do in that film. However, they had a midnight showing in Pittsburgh 6 months ago, and Q&A at 11 o'clock beforehand. And I went to do the Q&A, and I intention was not to watch the movie because I didn't feel that great about it. I started watching it, and it was the first time I could be objective. And it's good. The actors are tremendous. There's a lot going on there. It's a little bit more of a sequel than the original, you know. So I think it's pretty good. I think it's good. And Tom, even today, there are certain movies that critics put down, and there's a syndrome that that is 25 years from now, those critics think they're words when the movie becomes a classic. You know, I'm not saying it's a classic yet, but it's the same syndrome. Anybody else? Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
You ever got any negative feedback from either or either movies?
Yeah, there's a big article that something about how many women I've killed, okay, in movies.
Something about how many women I've killed, and apparently I apologize for killing. There's a real zombie. No, but the most famous zombie there ever was, Bill Heinz. But not really. They think of it as art. They think of it as the new exhibit from your favorite artist, you know. So people are pretty open-minded about the gore, you know. Mr. Heinzman. Sharing plate. Hey, look. I'm not the host. You have to shake my hand.
Anyway, I guess we're going to pass this around because
The portable ones aren't working that well. Any other questions? Let me sit here. What are you guys doing? Shawnee Clayton, Russ Stringer? Who's that guy? Howard Sherman? Kyra Schoen? Bill Heinzman? Nicotero?
Any more chairs?
So anyway, we just opened it up for questions.
Hi, everybody.
Now that everybody's here, yes, way back there.
Nice crowd.
What's the goriest thing I've done in any movie? God. You know, the first thing that comes to mind is the scalping from Maniac, you know, or blowing off my own head in Maniac. That was pretty, that's pretty gory. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Ah, there you go. Big Daddy is here. Right there.
What's happening? Big Daddy in the house, homeboy! Yeah.
He's the warm-up act, right? Yeah, but he's late. He's late. What, I'm sorry, what was the question?
Speaking of Mania, how was it working with Joe Spinell?
Joe Spinell was a lot of fun. You know, he was a fun guy. He was a generous guy, too. Sylvester Stallone was shooting Nighthawk at the same time. So Joe said, hey, Tom, come with me. Got in the cab, took me to the set, met Stallone, you know, and hung out on the set while they dragged some body out in a stretcher, you know. So it was fun, and he was a good guy, yeah. You know about his death, right? But you know, I gave him his fake head from Maniac, and he put it on his television in his apartment. Now, when he died, he actually fell and hit his head, and he bled to death on the floor. When the police came, they came in, and his feet were facing the door. So when they came in, there was his body, and they saw the head on the television, and they thought it was really going to be something, but then they realized it was a fake head, and you know. Any other questions? No? Well, thank you for coming. Come on, guys. Let's go. Yeah, right over there. We'll get you in a second, okay?
Is there any actor you're dying to put in zombie makeup?
Is there any actor I'm dying to put in? You know, you name who? Meryl Streep. So now you know his choice, right? Okay.
She was in zombie makeup all the time.
Okay. You had a question.
Yes, Ken,
How was it working with Alan Ormsby on Death Dream?
Alan Ormsby, he was a fun guy. I assisted him actually. That was my first film, you know. You know, he wrote Cat People, and Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, and you know, directed that thing as well. Hey, there's a lot of people up here.
let's ask a question.
Why did you guys actually decide to make a remake of Night of the Living Dead?
Money.
No, I think it was one of the few things that at that time George could get financing on. Also, they didn't own the copyright on the original Night of the Living Dead. Am I right, Russ? And that part of the remake was to try to get that copyright back?
Well, we've always owned the copyright. There is a flaw to the copyright, which is where the whole public domain issue comes from. But one of the things that motivated doing the remake was to shore up the copyright issue and money.
Because I had heard that, but I was wondering whether or not that's why.
Well, because they were robbed from the original film. The movie made a lot of money, but these guys didn't see any of it, you know, or hardly any of it. as far as I have been told. Were you raising your hand over there? Okay. Yes.
This is for Howard Sherman.
Here you go.
How do you feel about character Bob? Like, in the sense that it kind of has a story to him, like you never really get to see him again. You feel like there's one of those.
Well, I think it's crying out for a sequel. Or a prequel. Or both. Yeah. Who was Bub? I always thought Bub was maybe a defrocked priest who then became a biker. And then became like
Don't forget his black denim.
Yeah, right. A beat poet, something like that. With serious substance abuse problems.
Maybe he was a cop.
Yeah. All of the above.
He sure remembered how to shoot a gun.
Yeah, he moved around a little. What was the question?
The question was, no, it's for him. Oh.
So I have a question which I'm going to open up to everybody here. So obviously, since I do special effects makeup, the advances in makeup from Night of the Living Dead onward have changed considerably. In Night of the Living Dead, you can see the fact that it was out of the kit makeup. There wasn't a lot of prosthetic pieces. Even when we did Dawn of the Dead with Sharon and Clay, went for sort of the blue makeup with a little bit of foam latex, and then with Howard's performance in Day of the Dead, we had full face foam latex pieces. And then we got into Land of the Dead, and we started getting into dentures, and we started getting into contact lenses. And from an actor's standpoint, I mean, aside from creating them, I've been a zombie because I love being a zombie as well. But it definitely does something to your performance, and I think that'd be something that I'd be interested to hear what these guys have to say about it, because of the fact that you're literally immobilized in glue and in contacts and dentures and stuff. So I think that's something that would be part of the whole character.
Yeah. One of the things, I remember the very first time I was in the makeup, after sitting in the chair in the beginning, probably 3.5 hours. And I got up and I stood in front of the mirror. And it was just amazing because the stuff behaved just like flesh. When I moved my face around and I watched what it did, there's an odd kind of metamorphosis that actors go through when they take on the attributes of the character that they're playing. And when you're playing a character but not wearing a mask, the metamorphosis is sort of inside. You sort of feel like you're wearing another person's body inside this creature or this character that you've imagined. But that was the first time I ever experienced it like in physical reality, because it seemed like my own skin and it acted like my own skin, and it was really cool.
Well, that's something. As an actor, you're not often asked to play someone who a body that was dead and something is taking over and making it move again. So, as an actor, you're trying to think of how to be that. Did the makeup make that easier when you looked at yourself and saw a dead thing?
Completely. I mean, I spent a lot of time imagining, okay, so I'm dead, my flesh is dead, but it still moves. How to create a quality of movement. I figure balance was probably an issue, and sort of there was a bit of bobbling and, sort of like not very good eye-hand coordination like you see in an infant. They haven't really figured out how all this equipment works yet. And but as soon as the makeup was on, it was like it all just came together.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really just kind of as soon as I had the makeup on, I never really wanted to take it off.
That kind of process, opposed to Johnny. When Johnny came back as a zombie, there was very little that happened to Johnny because the process from the time he hit his head on the tombstone to the time where he comes back in the farmhouse door was a matter of maybe 10 hours, something like that. So Johnny didn't have the advantage of makeup, but what I decided to do with the Johnny character is that if you'll notice in the film, his stare is absolutely focused and blank. So that was my way around, not having a lot to work with. But the instant that you see that driving glove hand come up on the frame of the door, Barbara's about ready to buy the ranch.
And I just have to say too that to me, one of the first things that gave me nightmares was that shot in the movie. Because when I first saw Night of the Living Dead, they played it on television uncut in Pittsburgh. George was on with Bill Cardille. 9 or 10. No, it was I think it was before Dawn of the Dead. What terrified me was the close-up of Barbara with the hand sort of coming in and grabbing, and he pulls her towards him. And you're right, there was no life in his face, and he turns around and she disappears into a sea of zombies, and I had nightmares for weeks about what happened to her after she got pulled out. Which still, to this day, when we watched the movie the other night, that shot of you, the door opening and the realization on her face that it's you, it's so frightening because you know that she sees the connection and he doesn't, and he grabs her and pulls her out, and it just completely freaks me out.
I'll say
Completely.
that you were saying, I'm coming to get you, Barbara, and there you were coming to get Barbara.
The irony of it all.
When I was playing a zombie, I don't know how many of you know that the last...
That you were really dead.
Yeah, the opening scene was the last scene shot. And George gave me a call and said, you really look good as a zombie. You want to do this graveyard zombie? I said, yeah, okay, I'll be there. I went to the house, picked up my suit, and was a little late getting to the graveyard. And Jack almost took my part, but anyway.
Well, what, you mean you shot, because I saw you in lots of scenes in the movie as a zombie. So you did all that stuff first.
First.
And then George said, you come and be the first zombie.
Yeah.
The irony was the cemetery scene was the very first day of filming, very first scene, and the very last scene, because we didn't get finished in one day.
Yeah.
We
So
were separated by months.
I showed up at the set, of course, and throughout the film, George was giving us directions that we had strength in numbers. Other than that, we were pretty well. Yeah, you could scoot and get away from us. I got to the cemetery and we did the scene where I'm walking across, and then I run into Barbara. She actually runs into me, and Johnny comes to her rescue. And George says, "Okay, you got to kill Johnny." And I said, "George, how am I supposed to do that? I'm not supposed to have any strength, you know." And he thought about that for a while, and he said, "F it, just kill him." And then, of course, as we wrestled around, he would say, "You guys need to make some noise." We were actually recording sound at the time. Were we recording sound? So we made some noise, and then Russell kicked me in the groin, and I really made some noise. Now, first of all, I'm not an actor. I'm a camera person, okay? And it was a little hard for me to get into that character, but once I knew I had strength, it wasn't that hard anymore. And with a little direction from George saying, do this, do that, and allowing me to break a window, and then, as you remember, I was running after her pretty darn well. Little shuffle run, but it was still, you know. And you got to remember, the thing that's always in the zombie's mind is, I don't get tired. You do. You're going to get tired and slow down. I'm going to get you. So always keep that in mind.
George has bumper stickers that say "Fast zombies suck."
To answer Greg's question, when Gino
Crognoli
primarily put my makeup on, the prosthetic devices, and took it off, told me, and actually Greg, first time he showed me the head on the computer, and told me, you can't hide behind this makeup. Anything you feel inside, the audience is going to see. So when I first had it applied and saw it looked like, the script got me initially, because at that time, I was going through a little something. And I used to always hate it. I used to get beat up as a kid, believe it or not. I used to get chased in New York and places like that, until I finally said, you know, this is not going to work anymore. So I always thought about people who were messed with, who were beat up, who were shot, who was killed. I took it really way like mass genocide. That's how I viewed it. First when I looked at my face in the mirror and saw the decay, there was this heart-wrenching like moan that came out of my soul. So when there was no work sometimes, I would just look in the mirror. And there was a map on my face. All that work was a map. And that map really, for me, played a video of atrocities around the world. So that's how I looked at that. And in fact, there were moments when I had to stop my work. In fact, I used to hate it because we finished at, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I couldn't stop my work sometimes. And I would just, now I needed a hug. You know what I mean?
I had to hug him every
I had to hug him, you know. But the makeup was so awesome because you look, and right away your work started. You just looked in the mirror and your work started. So thank you, Greg, man. You did a great job, brother. Appreciate that.
Tyra Shern, oh, they got a microphone down there. Tyra, on the other hand, played a zombie at, what was it, 9?
9.
9.
And what does it say about me that I was scary looking and had almost no makeup? Just a few dark circles around my eyes, and that was it. Yeah, I think it's fine.
You know, the one other thing that a lot of people don't realize is that George never gives zombies specific direction as to how to walk. When we were on Day of the Dead, I remember, and Land of the Dead, and these guys have the greatest zombie walks ever, as we were talking about before they came in. But George said to me one day, he said, listen, go deal with the extras, but don't tell them how to walk, because I was directing second unit on Land of the Dead. And I said, well, why not? He said, because if you have a group of 50 people, and you demonstrate a zombie walk for 50 people, and you start rolling the camera, all 50 people will walk exactly the same way. So you have to just let them go. And the reason why everybody on the stage is so memorable is because they brought something to their character. When Sharon is the nurse and you see her head bobbing side to side and the stiff arms and they're going up the escalator, it's like those are like classic iconic zombie images. They basically defined how zombies walk and look. So I'm going to throw the mic over to them.
Anyhow, that escalator scene, George says, I want you to be a zombie on the escalator. I said, well, what do you want me to do, George? How do you want me to do it? He says, just be a zombie on the escalator. That was his directions. So I figured, well, a zombie doesn't know what he's doing anyhow, so pretend like you don't know what the hell you're doing. So I just bounced around, and all of a sudden, it was over. And I was up over the top, and George says, great. And a lot of people don't know, but George shot that. He shot that with a camera, Steadicam light. And it wasn't the regular camera they were using all the time. My wife, Sharon, a lot of people don't know that's my wife. She was a zombie during the movie. She started off being a zombie. No. No, I'm kidding. No, what I really want to say is she was going to college. She was going to college at the same time. So we would shoot from 9 till 7 in the morning. Then she'd run home, take a shower, go to college all day, and then come back and be a zombie at night. So by the end of the zombie, believe me, she was a walking, end of the movie, she was a walking zombie.
And when you see my eyes, whenever I was doing my zombie thing, I would roll my eyes up into my head. I don't know how I did that, but whenever George would say cut, you gotta try to get your eyes back down into focus, man. That's hard. That really is. But George, you know, whenever you would do it, he would say cut, and then he'd just go like this. Oh man, he'd laugh and he'd just walk away and shake his head. So you figure, okay, well I guess he likes it. Is that all right, George? He says, yeah, just keep doing it the way you're doing it. That's great. But like they said before, you know, when you are in these outfits and you do become a zombie, you do feel like a zombie would feel, I guess. And it is like a strange feeling. So, therefore, I never will go into a hospital again playing the nurse zombie.
Everybody has to walk out of here as a zombie.
Yeah, that would be great.
Any questions?
Remember this, you have to be the same zombie all the way through the film. You can't change your walk, you have to do the same zombie, you have to do the same face. You know, for continuity, you have to be the same one all the way through the film, so you have to remember what you're doing. You don't just do it.
remember when I had to limp a little bit, and my dad actually directed me in my scenes, and I said, well, how do you want me to walk? And he said, I don't know, limp a little bit. And I said, but I was bitten on the arm. Why am I limping?
Tell them who your dad is.
Well, my dad was Harry Cooper in the movie, Carl Hardman.
A good guy, good guy.
Any questions?
Yeah, actually, all right. Okay, originally, you know, as everybody here knows, in the first Night of the Living Dead, it wasn't zombie, it was
Ghoul.
and, flesh eaters.
Those things.
When exactly did the term zombie start being used? I mean, which was y'all first start hearing zombie?
Russ, didn't George talk about it with Peter?
Yeah, he did.
Yes.
You or something?
Right.
Yeah.
During the production, we referred to them as those things, the monsters, the ghouls. Zombie was picked up as momentum for Night of the Living Dead started to pick up an interest in publicity. There was a combination of things. George first made mention of it, and then the media people picked it up, and I think that's where zombie came.
And that was after Night of the Living Dead had been released. That's correct. You know, what's interesting is I have, there was some guys doing a documentary on George several years ago, and they had borrowed his original shooting script from Dawn of the Dead. His original script with all his handwritten notes. And the guy said, you see George more than I do, can you give him back his script? So last week in Los Angeles, I said, George, I have your original Dawn of the Dead script with all your notes. He went, you keep it. I'm like literally going, I'm holding the Holy Grail. It's like the phone book of horror right there. But what's interesting is that word is only used once in Dawn of the Dead, and it's in line at the end of the film where Peter says there's going to be 1,000,000 of thousands of those zombies in here. It's the only time they use the word zombie. And on the back page of the script is George's handwritten notes of that line of dialogue, which says there's going to be 1,000 of those things, there's going to be 1,000 of those creatures, and he scratches it up and scratches it up and handwrites zombie. So it's like he made a conscious decision in the screenplay because he had been talking about that word for such a long time period that now he was introducing the word into his own sort of, into his own.
I didn't know that.
That
Well,
really comes down to a
the first
media
time
thing.
the first time I ever heard it used in terms of you know, the Dead movie was I was sitting on my porch. I was 11 years old. And it was just after Night of the Living Dead had come out, and there was this boy a couple of years older than me in my neighborhood, and he walked by and he went, zombie, zombie. And I was like,
Did you smack him?
God. I was so, I wanted to like crawl into a hole and die.
Well, think about
You know,
it
I
as
was
a
11.
media thing. If you say zombie, that's a nice catchy phrase. But if you say flesh-eating ghouls, zombie's so much better and snappier, you know.
Well, they call it zombie. Dawn of the Dead's called zombie in Europe. That's the name of it, zombie.
I want to say, most of these horror films, okay, let me take that back. There are horror films that don't bother me much. Because, you know, I can look at, okay, same. But when I was a kid, around 5, 6, and 7, I watched too many. I should be asleep, I was watching horror films. They messed up my head. When I was watching Night, I'm sitting back. Rob goes, you're really getting into this, aren't you? I was freaked out. I was back to being a 6-year-old kid. And I'm sitting there going, why am I feeling like this? And when you got off the table, I was like, oh! And that's the first time in a long time I've been scared again. I remember how it was black and white, and it just took me way back. And I'm sitting like this in the theater, right? While I'm like, that's the first time I've seen it.
This is not some kind of
That's cool.
setup for a lawsuit that she's, her performance screws
No.
up.
No, it's just,
Won't be the first time.
you know, it was nice to be able to be transported back. And I realized that this movie has legs forever.
Well, it's funny because I was.
It's still running.
I was sitting in between Michelle, who's the star of Diary of the Dead, and Kathleen Kinmont, who was in Bride Reanimator the other night. And they're like, yeah, this is cool. And by the end of the movie, they're both like this. I was sort of like excited about the premiere, and literally by the end of the movie, they were both like, they didn't even move their head. And then when Dwayne gets shot, Kathleen admitted later she had never seen the movie. She went, "Oh shit, they shot him!" The only person that had never seen the movie, and I'm literally going, "Oh."
It's a question. It's an an interesting point that Greg makes, and this has been historically true throughout the whole life of Night of the Living Dead, and is still true to this day. You go to a college campus and you're screening the film for maybe 400 people, and I'll always ask, how many people are seeing this film for the first time? Historically, about a third of the audience have put their hands up. The movie starts off, cemetery scene, and there's laughing and giggling and this and that, and you can literally feel the humor draining out of the audience as the movie goes on. That's a reaction that we got back 40 years ago, and it still happens today. Was that exactly that?
I was wondering how everybody actually got their role as a zombie. I mean, some people were already just on set or showed up maybe as extras, but when somebody was actually approached as to be a zombie, like your first reaction or...
Nepotism.
What?
Nepotism. Do you want to answer that?
Your dad was in it, yeah.
We heard that they were looking for some people for Dawn of the Dead. We walked into George's office, and he was in there with Chris, his wife. And he talked to us for a while. He said, "We're going to make you lead zombies in the next movie." And we said, "What's a lead zombie?" We had no idea what a lead zombie was. He said, "I'm going to feature you and give you a credit." I said, "Good enough, George." That's how we got our part in the movie. Before that, we were in plays. We were singing and dancing in No No Nanette at the Pittsburgh Playhouse right before that. So we became zombies.
Well, I guess since I'm number one, I was an investor in the film. What, $300 or $600? Anyway, and I was skinny as a rail, and I had an old suit that I was willing to give up, and we needed some extra zombies. That's how I got the part. Be a zombie. All right.
Well, I was only a zombie in Land of the Dead, and it's the first Romero film where a character repeats itself as Blades in Land of the Dead. And I was supposed to play a part in the Dead Reckoning truck, but since I had already done the remake of Dawn of the Dead, they didn't want me to be a featured character in that, so George made me the Blades guy coming back.
I got the job just like every other job. I auditioned for it. Casting director called me up, and there wasn't very much of Bub in the original script. I was a little proactive, though. I took the initiative to bring a turkey leg to the audition, and there was something. Whatever one of the scenes that I auditioned was at the end of whatever the little sequence was. It was, Bub starts eating. I guess it was the scene where they feed him, from that bucket. And so I whipped out the turkey leg and started munching down on it, and I think that's what snagged the job.
Well, I'd like to tell you that getting the part of Johnny was the end of a long, grueling casting auditioning process. It wasn't that at all. The cemetery scene was the very first scene that we filmed. Understand that the movie was put together by a relatively small handful of people. So we're getting closer and closer and closer to shooting, and we had no Johnny. And George said, "Well, why don't you be Johnny?" And that was it. That's exactly how it happened. So I was Johnny by default.
And I thought Johnny died too soon. I really enjoyed your character.
Thank you.
Coming to get you, Barbara. I auditioned like Howard, and no, I didn't bring a turkey leg. I brought nothing. But other actors were coming out of the room going, "Is this acting 101? What's going on in there?" Yeah.
What did he ask you to do?
Well, he had a little, something to put a telephone on, a business phone. He just said, "You're dead. when you come back to life, that's a phone. You don't really know what it is. And I want to see a complete range of emotion. And I just sat in the chair for a long time and didn't move a muscle. And he said, "Are you okay?" And I nodded my head, yes. Then I got on the floor, and I looked at the phone. I'm kind of a germaphobe. And I thought, okay, babies put things in their mouths. Am I going to put that phone in my mouth? And I said, I'm not sure yet. So I laid my head down on the phone like it was a pillow. And then I closed my eyes and went to sleep for a little bit. Then I picked it up and started playing with it. Then I started eating the receiver. And I just thought, then I just went through a few little things, and I went from that to laughing to, at the end, just complete rage. And I picked up the chair as if I was going to kill someone with it. And George stood up and went, "Oh man, you got me, you got me." I think 2 weeks later they came back, he and one of the executive producers, and said, "Do you want the part?" And I said, "When does it start?" Because I do a lot of golfing tournaments, well, charity events, I can't really golf. And I had 4 or 5. And I said, "Well, when does it start? Because I have these tournaments I want to go to." And he told me, and I thought about it. I thought, well, I wasn't sure, but I really had this great vibe. I received this great vibe from George. I thought, this guy allowed me to play. A lot of directors do not allow you to play in the process. And I thought, I'm going to do it.
Yes. That's something that I think is a really important point about a lot of directors don't allow you to play, because I think a lot of directors, in my experience, there are just a very small handful of good directors in the world. There are a lot of bad directors. And I think what they generally do is they think they know what they're looking for. And so they're looking for that thing that they've already thought of. And I think the really great directors know that they're looking for an actor who will surprise them, an actor who will come up with something that they hadn't thought of. And that's why it's so important that I think really insightful and imaginative directors give actors the freedom to explore and come up, dig down into something that the actor himself hasn't even thought of, that you just discover in the moment.
Yeah, George lets you improvise as an actor and as a special makeup effects person, and that allows you to do something that you thought of, and that's where the fun is, inventing how to do something. We would go to George, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. "George, how about if we like drive a screwdriver through a zombie's ear?" And he'd go, "Okay." Like 2 hours later, we're making the pieces and the retractable screwdriver and squirting the blood and stabbing a zombie in the ear because he let us do that. He does that as an actor as well. He just lets you go, and then he learns from you himself.
So my zombie performances, it was more out of necessity actually. When we were doing Day of the Dead, there was a scene in the script. The script went under massive rewrite when we were shooting the film. Originally, it was supposed to take place in Florida on this remote island. It was really this elaborate movie, and originally the producers were going to put up $8 million to shoot this sort of 10 Commandment zombie epic, and that was the script that we all read and we all signed on to do. And then the studio came back and said it has to be unrated, so we'll give you $3 million. So George had to go in and rewrite the script and take out a lot of the expensive action sequences. But one of the scenes that was always in there was this scene where this head comes back to life, and you realize that that's in there. That Dr. Logan isn't experimenting. So they said, "Well, Greg, you're one of the first guys hired in the movie, so you should play the decapitated head. So you can play the soldier, as well as play the severed head." I mean, I'm not an actor, so it was completely like, okay, Greg can be the severed head, so he'll be that guy. But one of the things from a technical aspect of it is, on Land of the Dead and Diary of the Dead, sometimes you want a special effects guy in makeup in there to help sell the gag. When we tore off Tasso's head in Day of the Dead, I was the guy that stuck my fingers in his eyes and pulled the head off, so that you hear that screech when his head gets ripped off. And Tom was pumping the blood, and I was in zombie makeup and someone else was working the jaw, radio controlled. And then on Land of the Dead, I was the zombie on the bridge that gets decapitated by the bridge when I'm fighting with Simon Baker. And Diary of the Dead, I was the zombie surgeon that gets shot in the... And George looks at me and goes, what the hell are you doing? How come every time I turn around, you're in zombie makeup? I'm like, I don't know, I kind of like it. He literally thinks I'm insane that I keep volunteering to get the contacts and the dentures and the... It's like, you know, I'll show up on set all like ready to go. I'm ready. And he's like, sit down, what are you, crazy? But listen, I mean, I'm very excited, and there'll be another zombie movie, and I'll be in it, and I'll keep my world record as the most appearances as zombies. That's right. But that really wasn't me. That was a phony head. But any other questions? Oh, sorry. Yes.
Actually, this enthusiasm you see right here, it's infectious because that's how he was on Land of the Dead. He was like a kid, and you go, this is great. You should. And you know, you pick up on that, and you look at this guy, and you go, because I didn't know that much about the whole zombie thing. So I'm looking, and I saw his work the first time he showed it on the computer, and I think, okay. So being allowed to play, the artists behind the, these special effects guys, they're loving it. It's like, I used to play pro football a long time ago, and it's like, damn, we're gonna have a good time today. So let's throw it all in, just throw it all in. And actually, before I played pro football, I was an actor. I live in Florida, and guys used to chase me and beat me up. So I play football because as an actor, you were like a wussy, all right? I'm not a wussy anymore, and if I see any of you guys from back in the day, I'm gonna hurt you.
But Greg is also an innovator. There's only so much you can do to somebody's face and their arms and their clothing to make a zombie. If you notice that female baseball player in Land of the Dead with half her jaw gone, you're seeing through. I mean, that was makeup. That is not CGI, and that is innovation. You're not going to see a close-up of Greg in Diary of the Dead, but he was also wearing an innovation in his makeup with plastic forms that pulled his lips back, almost like Lon Chaney would distort his face with physical stuff. But unfortunately, there's not a close-up, right, in Diary of the Dead.
I did it all with body language.
Yeah. But hopefully, I know there was a photo in Fangoria magazine of that, and that really did something, because there's something that happens to a dead body. I saw many of them in Vietnam, and he kind of reminded me of that, what I would see there, what would happen to people's expressions in death. It's not always what they do in movies where they try to look good for the camera and give you a nice face after they die, you know. It's a horrendous thing with a jaw going lax, you know, but those are innovations that are not CGI. You're seeing them happen right in front of you, and he did them.
I think we have time for one more question.
Yeah, this is for the Dawn crew. I was just wondering if you guys saw the movie with an audience when it first came out, and if so, how shocking was it to the audience because of the gore? I remember when I saw it in '81 at a midnight movie, it was so shocking. People busted out.
You're talking about Dawn of the Dead, right? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was so shocking.
Well, that's the fun. That's the fun. We don't go there and watch the movie. We pick somebody out in the audience and watch the evolution of their heart attack, you know. That's our thrill, because there's no audience when we're doing it, applauding, you know, when it happens, except the crew, but that's the moment for us, you know. Anybody else want to grab that? Yeah, that's good. Well, another question, go ahead.
I'd be interested in hearing about what movie memorabilia you have, such as costumes or props from your respective movies.
Well, there's one right here. Anybody else have memorabilia? There was a trial floating around for a while.
A friend of mine has the original trowel. I
Yeah.
have the little bandage. I have
Oh, you have them with you?
No, I didn't bring those on the airplane. I couldn't get them on the airplane.
He collected all the blank rounds that came out of the guns and usually has them on his table, you know. The Derringer.
Yeah.
You still have that thing?
Yeah, I have them.
I offered you $500 for that damn thing. He did.
He has the original Derringer.
Hold out, yeah. Just keep
I
it.
have the original Derringer where Ken's going to shoot himself, and it's the last gun fired on Dawn of the Dead, and they gave it to me at the end of it. Because I took care of all the weapons on Dawn of the Dead. I loaded and unloaded all the guns.
The thing is, people didn't really think back then to keep props or memorabilia. I mean, when I got into it, you know, I was a fan. I mean, I loved Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead. So I've kept everything from every movie. I actually have one of Eugene's costumes. I have Howard's. I actually have Howard's collar from Day of the Dead. Bub's collar I have. But even ironically, when they were in downtown Pittsburgh, their office was on Fort Pitt Boulevard, and George called and said, "Listen, we're closing the office down. You want to come and help us clean out the basement?" Which was the basement that they shot Dawn of the Dead. Night of the Living Dead was the basement. So I'm like all creeped out because I'm like down in the basement. But I found the magnetic sticker that said WGN Traffic that they put on the side of the helicopter when they were shooting Dawn of the Dead. So I was like, I said to Michael Gornick, I'm like, Mike, can I have this? Who was the director of photography? Yeah, listen, we're gonna throw it out anyway. So I have the plastic sticker they stuck on the side of the helicopter for Dawn of the Dead.
One thing I have to say. When Night of the Living Dead, we had all the stuff stored in the basement of that building in 247. And we had a flood. And in those days, the flood would come up through the sewers and into the basement of the buildings. And I was out of town shooting something else. George was out of town shooting something else. So the basement got flooded with everything down there. All the outtakes, the extra takes from Night of the Living Dead, the costumes. When I got back, I went down and we had to clean that crap out. And the one thing that I did find was the cement trowel. Now, the cement trowel was bent, so it would fit in her hole in her blouse to make it look like it was stuck in it. And it was kind of rusty from being down there. But I took it and cleaned it up, painted it blue, and used it as a bookend in the office at 247. And the 25th anniversary, I said, I think I'll take that. I cleaned all the paint off and took it into the 25th anniversary and had everybody sign it. And I held on to it for a long time, and then Kyra's friend just made me an offer I could not refuse. I said, okay, are you going to keep it? Not give? Yeah, I'll keep it. Can Kyra always get a hold of it? Yeah, Kyra can always get a hold of it. So that's where it went.
Okay, I want to clear one thing up. I said my wife was a zombie when I met her. I was kidding. You know, I was kidding.
He just want to make sure his stay at this hotel is going to be fine, you know.
She was the
for the
furthest
rest of the weekend.
She was the furthest thing I've ever seen from a zombie. In fact, at that time, Sharon was going to college on a softball scholarship. They paid her way to college to play softball, and I was a coach on the team. So there's no one any more energetic than this kid. She gets up every morning at 6:15, runs 3 miles, and then works out for 2 hours every day. So I was kidding. I was kidding. I love her to death.
He's safe now.
All right, let's have a hand.
All of these great folks are going to be at their tables